Hello TES community. It's great to be able to join you today just for a few minutes to have a bit of an update on your reading of the book Flourish. And what an important time to have been reading such a book. This has been such a challenging year for all of us in so many different ways, and yet we're still here, and it's great to have this opportunity to engage with you today. We've heard so much, haven't we, over the last year about what the science says about how to tackle the virus in terms of actually treating people who are sick, how we can try and prevent it through vaccination and all the various social distancing programs, etc., etc. But what many people have not been hearing about at all is what the science says about how we can actually find ways to survive and actually thrive in the context of something like a pandemic. And this is where you're a bit different, because you've had an opportunity to read the book Flourish, which is looking at the science of well-being, the science of positive psychology. And what you've been able to understand so far, as I think you got to about chapter 7, is sort of what well-being is, what are some of the interventions that we know that can work. You've had a chance to look at the idea of positive education, mental fitness, character, grit. And you're going to be, in the future, looking at the next chapter around post-traumatic growth, which is particularly relevant in the current circumstances. So you guys will know more about what the science says about how to be well in a pandemic than most people. What I wanted to do today, though, very briefly, was to bring you right up to speed with what the very latest research is saying. And there's a really important paper came out just in March 2021 called, funnily enough, Positivity in a Pandemic. And it was pulled together by Professor Lee Walters from the University of Melbourne and a whole group of the world's leading researchers in the positive psychology field. And the premise of the paper is actually really quite simple. That mental distress, of course, the whole COVID pandemic has caused a huge amount of fear and anxiety and stress and worry for so many people across the world. But mental distress and mental health and well-being can coexist. So despite the fact that there's this common adversity and the challenges around job loss and financial insecurity and homeschooling and home working, illness and bereavement, the list goes on and on and on. Some people have actually managed to find ways, as I said, to both survive and thrive during the pandemic. So what the paper does, it draws on a number of key themes. And you'll see these themes both reflected in the book Flourish, but also in the amazing work you do at TES around your wellbeing strategy. So the themes are meaning in life, coping, self-compassion, courage, gratitude, character strengths, positive emotions, positive interpersonal practices, and building high-quality connections. Now, you'll have heard me talk about most of these themes many times in my various visits to the school. And what the paper is highlighting through research carried out in 2020, so this is research carried out in the pandemic itself, is that when we look at interventions relating to these themes, we get 3 really important outcomes. What they do is they buffer against people falling into anxiety, stress, and depression, and that's both for adults and young people. Secondly, what they do is they bolster our resilience and our capacity to navigate through these challenging times. And the third thing is they build our mental toughness and that ability not just to survive, but to grow, to learn, to stretch, to embrace, and to be even bigger and better than we were before. So we talk about the idea of buffering, bolstering, and building. And I'm sure, again, you'll see so much of this work reflected in what you're doing at TES. Another important study I wanted to highlight, again, because this is absolutely brand new, only came out a couple of months ago, is from the late Professor Tony Grant, my mentor from the University of Sydney. And it's a paper that looks at positive psychology interventions and coaching psychology interventions. And it looks at a randomized controlled trial study of quite a large number of people who were put through both pos-psych programs and coaching programs. And what they found is that in both sets of programs, they could identify reductions in anxiety, stress and depression and enhanced well-being, which is really, really good outcomes. But the coaching psychology group knocked out the ballpark, the positive psychology group, for additional benefits and outcomes associated with greater insight, higher levels of psychological well-being, improved solution-focused thinking, and goal attainment. And this is why we argue that the combination of positive psychology and coaching is so important, because the positive psychology can give us these ideas, these interventions of things we know can work, but what the coaching psychology does, it gives us a tool to help people to think about, what does this mean for me and how can I apply it and do something with it in my own life? You'll also know from the work I've done with you on coaching at TES is that I absolutely believe that coaching conversations enhance the positive interpersonal processes at school, and they build on the high quality connections. And I also believe that coaching, the act of coaching, enhances the well-being of the coaches themselves. So I'm absolutely delighted that we've been able to continue the work on coaching support in school as well. So I just wanted to leave you with that. Clearly, life is not going to get any easier. COVID-19 will hopefully be over at some point in the future, but whatever the new normal is, it's going to be very different to how life was before. But that is life. The associated distress that goes with life is not going to change. But what I think we know we can draw upon is the fact that there are evidence-based approaches to enhancing our well-being. Got a bit of a phrase here I wanted to share with you because I think it's really important. But we're able to say that positive psychology buffers, it bolsters and it builds. It helps us to continue to function even through the dark times. It helps us to prioritise our own well-being so we can then prioritise other people's well-being, look after yourselves first. And of course it helps us to embrace the future, be bold, be bright and get out there and continue to do the fantastic work that you all do. So I want to leave you with that. I hope one day I'll see you Clive Live again. Let's hope so. But until then, continue to be well and continue to flourish. Take care and goodbye.